The views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Union Broadcasting Inc., ESPN 1510, or its employees. The host is solely responsible for the on-air content.
This is Casey Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by Charitable Communications. We will tell the stories of Kansas City's nonprofits and the people behind them. Casey Cares is proudly sponsored by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis. Bobby's out of pocket this afternoon today, but we have a great show with some folks we've never had on before, and it's so fun for us here on Casey Cares to share nonprofits we haven't had a chance to talk with and learn their story. And it's Kansas City Public Theater. We have Nathan Bowman, who is the producing artistic director.
Hello.
We're so happy to have you. And along with them is Kaitlin Gould, who is the playwright of their upcoming production that you're in rehearsal for right now. And you've worked with the theater for quite a while. Or this is your...
third production. I met them last February, auditioned for them, and then got to start working with them and have just...
And she's still here.
And I keep coming back.
You're here. Not to steal a song from a theater show, and if anybody wanted to know, that was Follies. Nathan, there are a lot of theaters in Kansas City.
There are, yeah.
Tell us about Casey Public Theater and your origins.
Yeah, so Casey Public Theater was founded by myself and my wife, Elizabeth, who's the executive artistic director. And we started the theater with the idea that we really wanted to increase accessibility to the arts, specifically the performing arts. And, a lot of people, do have a passion for making the arts accessible. And so we really wanted to ask ourselves, well, what does it really mean to have the performing arts be accessible, and what can we do that other theaters aren't doing? For anybody that goes to see, theater or dance or opera or any of the performing arts, it's probably no secret that tickets can be very, very expensive. You could go see Parasite like 5 times for the price of a ticket to most theaters in town. So it's a good movie. So what we wanted to do was, think about what are the barriers we can remove from people having access to seeing live performing arts. So we said, well, we're going to start a theater. It's going to be professional, but we're not going to charge any admission to any of our performances. So all of our shows are free of charge to the public.
Now, wait a minute. You're not going to charge anything.
Nothing at all.
How the heck do you do that? Both Bobby and I have toiled in the theater arts. We go to theater. We love theater. We understand the ticket price, but we also know there's a behind-the-scenes cost. So how do you do that?
Yeah, so basically, a lot of nonprofit theaters are funded very heavily by donors, grants, foundations, and that sort of thing. And a lot of theaters, you'd be surprised by how little of their revenue actually comes in from ticket sales. Very rarely do theaters make back their money in ticket sales in a single evening.
Yeah.
So we just said, okay, we're going to produce theater, and we already know that most theaters don't make, all of their money in ticket sales. So we'll just operate under a budget with the presumption that we don't have that revenue coming in. So we operate with all of that other revenue, and we get donations at every show. You can reserve seats in advance for a price, but honestly, we don't produce anything that we know we can't produce. We operate under the assumption that we're making zero money on anything that we produce. So, and with that in mind, we set our budgets and we stick to them. So,
I don't even know where to jump in on that. So let's share with our audience a little bit. Typically, when a theater, whether it is a profit and mostly are nonprofits, whether it's professional, and define that.
Yeah, so when we say that we're professional, we mean that we pay every artist involved in all of our productions. For our main stage productions, we compensate all of our actors at least minimum wage. which it's not much, but it's a lot more than actors make at some other places. You'd be surprised at how little some people think that they can pay actors. So
you're paying your actors and you're using that as the definition as opposed to saying actors equity, which is even another layer, isn't it?
Yeah, so we do offer some, so the Actors Union equity, we do offer some equity contracts for some of our work. It just depends on what the show's budget is and what the cast size is and that sort of thing.
So that defines you as professional. We'll go back to where I started now that I've confused everyone who's listening. So professional or community theaters, everybody's got to pay a royalty for the most part. So how are you able then to deal with that? Fundraising in other ways? Because that sometimes is not cheap.
Right. We tend to, so the fact that we're free really, it does affect the kind of work that we do and the way that we do the work. So we tend to not do work that has really expensive royalties. So like your traditional Broadway musical, those are going to be very expensive. You got to buy all the music. You got to buy, the royalties by themselves are so expensive. So we avoid things like that. We do a lot of our own in-house adaptations of sort of classic works that are in the public domain. We work with area playwrights. I just gestured to Kaitlin if you couldn't see it. We work with area playwrights from the area to produce their work. So most of our work is grounded in local writers as well as sort of public domain stuff. So we try to avoid the royalties, although there have been on occasion we've done some shows that like by Tennessee Williams and stuff like that. So
is there a lot out there in the public domain?
Oh yeah. I mean, locally there's a ton of playwrights. Even Adult Child, Dead Child was a one-woman show I did last year with them, which was by a British playwright. But there's so much content out there, and I think sometimes people go, oh, I want to do Tennessee Williams. Oh, I want to do the Broadway musical because that's going to make money, that's going to sell, people want to see it. But I think there's so much brilliant content out there that's not getting discovered. So like with Casey Public's Theater Lab series, which is what my show is part of, there's just so much more opportunity to find that work out there and to do something new and exciting that people aren't going to see typically.
I want to come back to you, Kaitlin, and talk about writing a piece for the theater. I would think that is very difficult and challenging. So congratulations to you, let alone perform
my
it.
life's work.
How do you then, Nathan, go about choosing a season with all those parameters in mind?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of reading, I guess. I don't know. So we do have our, as Kaitlin mentioned, we have our Theater Lab series, which is once a month we put on something by a local playwright who's developing a new work. Sometimes that takes the form of a staged reading. In the case of Kaitlin's show Mirrors that we're doing right now, it was already sort of workshopped in a reading setting, so we're able to fully produce it through Theater Lab, but it's still a sort of devised developmental piece. And so Theater Lab, I mean, it is just that, it's a lab. So sometimes, like for Kaitlin was in our show Her Own Devices about a year ago now, and that started off as a staged reading at our Theater Lab, and we're like, oh, we really like this play, so then we developed it into a full-length production. So that's a good way of getting us like immersed in the local playwriting community, is inviting writers in for our Theater Lab. And then in terms of more classic stuff and how we find that, I think it's just, I don't know, we sort of myself and Elizabeth are pretty, we're both theater professors on the side, so
so there is another gig.
Yeah. So we both are pretty well versed in all of the types of public domain material that are out there. So like this season we're doing 2 shows by August Strindberg, and he's sort of a classic, I guess, but all his stuff's in public domain. So yeah.
You do three productions a season then generally?
Generally, yeah. We do 3 main stage productions, and then we do 8 Theater Lab productions.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's really ambitious.
Feels like it sometimes.
Where is your home? Do you have a home theater space?
Yeah, so we're actually in the process of moving into a new office right now, off of Independence Avenue in downtown Kansas City. For our theater lab, our home has been the Capsule Performing Studio at 17th and Broadway, just kind of catty corner from the Kaufman Center. So that's where we've been doing theater labs for a while now. That's where Mirrors is at. And then for our main stage productions, we kind of pop them up at different locations across the city. For us, accessibility, it's not just about the money, but it's also bringing theater into atmospheres that maybe it's a little bit more comfortable for people, because it can be a stressful thing if you've never been to a big theater before, like knowing what the protocols are, what's the, how you dress, what do you, that sort of thing. So we try to produce our main stages in various locations across the city just to kind of bring theater to people, as it were.
So kind of pop-up theater.
In a way, yeah. We do definitely pop up quite in some odd places every once in a while, but it's fun. And it has some challenges with it as well, because most of the spaces we perform in aren't suited for theatrical lighting and sound, so we have to bring all of our own stuff in.
And there comes ching ching.
Yep.
Yeah. There comes the money.
Uh-huh.
Kaitlin, how did you get into writing for the theater?
Quite honestly, I don't know that I would have gotten into writing had it not been for my grad school program. I studied in East 15 Acting School in the UK, and there's a huge devising community, I would say, in general over there, but it was a big part of our course. And in my second year, we had to write our own monologues, and I'd had this idea in my head for about 5 years at that point. I'd had bulimia, and I had just this like word vomit, as I like to call it, because that's my sense of humor. And I didn't know what to do with it. And they were like, you need to write a monologue. So I was like, all right, I have this. Let's do it. It needs to be based off a text. So I was like, great, Alice in Wonderland, eating disorder, let's go. And then from there, I was like, okay, like I really want to do something with this. So it started off as a 7-minute short, became a 15-minute short play that I took to Edinburgh Fringe Festival with a few other short plays. And then kind of sat for a while. And then I met this girl, Athena. I met her on Casey Fringe in 2017, and then she helped me produce my workshop in 2018. And then I think I was working on Her Own Devices, and I just went up to Elizabeth and was like, hey, so I have this play. Can I submit it? And she was like, yeah.
That's really cool.
Which is amazing, because I feel like it was just luck and meeting the right people at the right time. And I feel like a lot of people work very, very, very hard to get their plays anywhere. So I'm very, very grateful that I've met Casey Public Theater.
So you've got those 3 main stage, you've got all those theater lab. How do you get your audience? Who is your audience? Who comes to see your shows?
Well, we've been lucky so far that our audiences have been very consistent and growing, and I think that our audiences tend to be, and maybe it's just because of the price point, which is nothing. It could be that. I think our audiences tend to be a lot younger than traditional theater audiences. And by a lot younger, I mean typically like the majority of our audiences are under 40 or well under 40. So and theater lab has been really great because because it's a monthly program. And people have sort of grown to expect it, because we do it typically the first Monday of every month. So that's been great. We've been getting a consistent audience of people coming back to each lab wanting to see the next sort of work and development that we present. So that's been pretty great as well.
I even had a friend during Her Own Devices. I've worked on him with some stuff at Stuffed Buffalo Productions. And he was like, yeah, we were just walking by and saw there was a show, so we came in, which is really cool.
Yeah, we have a lot of walk-ins because of our open door policy. So
that's great. Where can people go to find out all the information about your productions, how they can support you either by audience or by dollar?
Yeah, you can just visit our website, kcpublictheater.org. That's theater spelled with an R-E at the end. You always have to specify. So yeah, kcpublictheater.org. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, just with the handle KC Public Theater.
Was this a dream of yours always to have your own theater and do this?
It kind of was, yeah. When I first got to college, I always said that I was just going to start a theater. And at first I thought that meant I needed to double major in business. And then I took an accounting class and realized that part of it wasn't for me. But I still wanted to start a theater. So, yeah, it's sort of been with me for a while now.
Well, so that's why you did free admittance. So that was one thing in the business model you didn't have to mess with.
Makes the accounting
easier. I got it.
Yep.
Well, it's so great to have you all in the world of theater in Kansas City. I mean, in the last even 5 years, it's just continued to blow up in this town. And you mentioned...
There's a lot of talent here.
Kaitlin, you mentioned KC Fringe, and I think that it's been a very helpful kind of event and entity. We've had Cheryl Kimmey on, real connection place to learn and everybody sees what everybody's doing and is supportive.
Yeah.
So on behalf of Kansas City, KC Cares welcomes you to the Kansas City Public Theater here for you guys and everywhere else. So we want to make sure our listeners check it out. Your production coming up, which Kaitlin is your piece.
Yes.
Opens February 29th.
Correct.
And runs for how many performances?
Just 2 performances.
Oh, my gosh. So you've got to be on top of it, everybody.
Be on top of it. We're doing February 29th, and then we have an industry night on March 2nd.
But then you've got every month, you've got something going.
Yes.
So there's no reason you have to miss it. Check it out. Theater in a kind of a different context than maybe you've ever experienced it before. Nathan and Kaitlin, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.